Hey guys, this is Homestead Dad again. As it starts to get cooler, I've got to start thinking more and more about winter preparations. And I figured I'd bring you down to the garden and the orchard because that's two places where I've got to start thinking about what I want to do for next year. So I mentioned this year the garden just got way away from me. We got very little done in the way of gardening, but stuff still grew. You guys can probably see there's some tomatillos that grew, and those are just volunteers from last year. Some tomatillos that had fallen. So, but obviously this is way overgrown. So what I'll probably do is wait until a little bit later in the fall, and I'll cut this all down to probably 6 or 8 inches and just leave everything on there. Leave it kind of as a cover crop. Whatever's on here will become the cover crop for it. And then in the spring, I will probably till some of the area and then weed around some of the other areas. But over here in the orchard, there's not a whole lot that needs to be done. But a couple times in the past, mice have girdled the trees. They've eaten the bark around the bottom of the trees. And as you can see, one, it needs to be cut over here. But also, none of these trees have protection around their trunks. So I have bought some of the white plastic that goes around the trunks to try to keep stuff away from them. So that will be one project that I need to get done in order to try to protect all these trees. Because I think we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 trees. And I think most of them, despite all those, I think they're Japanese beetles, I think most of these trees have done okay. You can see this tree got hit by the beetles. You can see the leaves, maybe if it focuses, that got eaten. Come on, focus on what I want you to focus on. There we go. Nope. Right there. But it still survived. I don't see, just looking, any trees that are dead. There may be a couple over there that were planted this year. Let's go over and take a look. I think I planted a couple cherry trees this year that might not have made it. But what I'll do on those is I bought those from Stark Brothers. Oh, and they actually survived. You can see here. There's some leaves. Let me get out of the light here. There's leaves here and down there. And the same thing on this one over here. The top may have died, but it shot out new growth right here and here. So, but even if they don't make it over the winter, Stark Brothers has got a great return policy or replacement policy. If you call them within the first year, they will replace your trees once. They won't do it if it happens over and over again, but they'll replace them once, and they've never asked a question. They've just, taken my word on it. So, but it looks like everything else is done pretty well. Some of these trees, like this one here, and this one here, and this one here, are starting to get to the size where I think we could get some fruit next year. So, but while I'm down here, let's also go over and look at the nut trees. I don't know if you guys knew, I have a couple nut trees. Before we head down over to the nut trees, I wanted to show you, this spring I had ambitions of grafting lots and lots of apple trees. And what had happened was I ordered the grafts long ahead of time, and we went to a local farm and got a bunch of scion wood, but they weren't able to deliver the grafts until well after I had gotten the scion wood. So the timing just didn't work out. But I did get a few grafted, and these are the ones that I got grafted and planted. So a couple of them are on micro rootstock, and some of them are on some, I think, standard or maybe even medium rootstock. I've got it written down someplace. But the grafts that didn't take, I will just use those rootstocks next year for grafting. And I'm going to do my best to order maybe soon, so I can try to get a better order date so that it'll work out for grafting, because it wasn't that difficult and it was a lot of fun. So we'll have a video on that hopefully in the spring. So with regards to orientation, The garden is there. The house is there. The vineyard is right over, let's see, right over there, in between those two groups of evergreens. And then over here is another section of orchard. This right here is one of my nut trees. Can't remember if this is a pecan. I think I've got one of these, this one, and then this one. One is a pecan and one is an almond. And if you guys haven't figured it out, I am pretty hands-off with a lot of my stuff. Like, if I can't plant it and forget about it, it may not do well. I mean, I think I planted these and then made sure they had water for the first couple months. But after that, I really haven't done much. They've got the cage around them to protect them, but they've been doing pretty well. So the one unfortunate thing about nut trees is it takes a really long time for them to be productive. Whereas fruit trees, you can maybe have fruit in 3 to 5 years. Nut trees are more like at least 7 to 10. So these are the trees that I bought this year. And I think this one right here is I think it's a pear. And you can see the deer are starting to rub on things. So I'm going to have to put a cage. I didn't have enough cages to put around these ones. I'm going to have to make something quick or this one's going to die if it hasn't already. That one got snapped off in a storm and is already dead. And this one looks like it's getting rubbed on pretty good. So I will have to make that a priority and get over here and get those taken care of. But the trees I actually bought from a local guy, and they were much bigger than the ones that I can get from Stark Brothers. You can see they look great. The ones that I protected, despite only watering for probably the first month and it being a really dry summer, they've done pretty well. In fact, I think there's 2 apples over on that tree right there. So I'll have to protect these ones. This part of it's kind of orchard number 2. This part is further from the house. I'll show you here in a second. I didn't have any more room in the main orchard, so I started planting out here. And it's a great spot for planting, except that it's really close to the woods here, so the deer can kind of duck out, rub or try to eat the trees, and then duck back in if they're not caged off. But if we ever build, we'd be building right back here behind me, over here. So it'd be nice to have fruit trees right by the house if they survive. So, but the current house is way up there, and then the trees, like I said, are here, and the woods is over here. So that's it for the orchard. There's a couple apple trees in front of the house and a couple right up behind the house, and there's some peach trees I think I've shown at one point up closer to the street that all seem to be doing well. So this year was actually a pretty good year for us with regards to fruit trees. Not a lot has died, so hopefully we get a good growing season next year and we really start getting into some fruit. So until next time, if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you've liked any of these videos, please consider subscribing. I really appreciate it. And otherwise, I'll see you on the next video.